Welcome into the Blake and Jake Show. I've got two more segments. We've got basketball, NBA, and MMA, some UFC talk coming up your way. But let's go ahead and kick into it. Jake, go ahead and get us started on our first segment. Hit me.
All right, Blake, let's talk trades. So first, let's talk about the major trades. I think that the New York Knicks won the trade deadline, right? Right? Would you agree with that?
I think so.
So what now? What's next for the New York Knicks?
Well, I think that the Knicks are somebody to talk about. But before we get into just the Knicks, I want you to go ahead and talk to me about just each one of these trades. Go ahead and highlight some trades. Go ahead and start with the Mavericks. I'll pick it up after the Mavericks because I don't know if listeners are aware, but Jake here is a Mavericks fan, so he gets to do Maverick stuff.
Yes, I am. All right. So in a trade that I very much like, the Mavs got P.J. Washington from the Hornets. They also got a 2024 second-round pick and a 2028 second-round pick. In return, the Hornets got Grant Williams and Seth Curry. They also got a 2027 first-round pick.
On that trade alone, and then we'll continue on to these other trades, what are your thoughts on who won that trade?
Well, I am biased, but I think that the Mavs won that trade. Ignoring the picks, I have not been a huge fan of Grant Williams. I don't think he's been playing all that well for us this season. I also saw some reports recently that apparently other players might not have been too happy with him. And in terms of Seth Curry, he was on the Mavs a couple of years ago, and then he got back with the Mavs. In his second stint with the Mavs, he didn't play terrible, but he mostly he didn't play very much. So I don't think we were giving up too much. PJ Washington, I am a fan of PJ Washington, especially more and so now that he's on the Mavs. But I think this was a pretty good trade for the Mavs.
I think so too. The Mavs have been very interesting in their moves in the last few years surrounding Luka Doncic. I've liked some sets that they've had around them, and then they move it before it seems like they give it two tries. They don't give it two tries. They give it one try, and I feel like there's some teams that have deserved another try, and maybe it's because of just cap issues or one thing or another, but haven't been able to just run it back and give it a second try. So it feels like they're kind of playing musical chairs at some positions there. Hopefully P.J. Washington fills that. A great player out of Charlotte, but nobody ever gets to see because who watches Charlotte Hornet basketball? Next trade, though, and I'll go ahead and take it over from here. The Pacers have finally gotten rid of Buddy Hield, a name that had been on the sharpening market for quite some time now. And what the Pacers got might have been a little bit of a haul for a player that's been shopped or rumored to be shopped for quite a few years. The Pacers were able to get Furkan Korkmaz, and I'll be honest, Korkmaz, I like Korkmaz as a player, as a guard, especially offensively. They also get a guard in Doug McDermott. That's out of Creighton. Father coached him there. 2024 second-round pick from the Raptors, a 2029 second-round pick from the Blazers, and some cash from the 76ers. And then, of course, the Spurs also got Marcus Morris, a second-round pick from the Clippers, and some cash considerations, making it all work. Now, I don't know. The 76ers are an interesting team, especially because of Joel Embiid coming out. I think that Buddy Hield would have been a fantastic part of that had he remained healthy. And if Embiid, I'm not sure if Embiid's out for the season.
I don't think he's out for the season, but he's gone for a while.
And it's up to the 76ers to keep fighting for a place. But, I mean, once Embiid comes back, you move Hield to maybe a bench role. I think that's some extra shooting for the 76ers. It makes sense on their little run that they're going to add some shooting pieces for their backups. And Korkmaz is a guard you can give the ball to as well. I like what he does with the ball. I think maybe his defense could get him into some trouble. But offensively, Korkmaz is very skilled. Moving on, the Thunder get Gordon Hayward, who is still playing basketball. The Hornets making moves here, and really, Gordon Hayward was with the Celtics before that, and kind of the eye of the basketball world, and then suddenly disappeared. It's because the Hornets got him. The Hornets instead get Micic, Trey Mans, Davis Bertans. Who great shooter, by the way. 2024 second-round pick from the Rockets and the 2025 second-round pick from the 76ers. And for this one, I'm going to ask you, who won this trade, and do you have a why for me? Because this is a weird trade. It's hard to create an opinion off this trade too much.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the Thunder definitely Well, not definitely, but they did win this trade. I think that they needed a veteran presence because they have a really, really young team. And although Gordon Hayward might not give them the best production on the court, but I think he'll definitely be an off the court spark for that team.
That's certainly a great take. I look at it and I see Gordon Hayward as like a very good veteran to add that doesn't have to kind of prove himself really by scoring a bunch of points. These guys are young on the Thunder. All of them are young. All of them are going to look up to Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward has something for these young guys. And when you look at what the Thunder gave up, except for Bertans, I don't really see any of this being useful stuff for the Thunder and what they've got going on at this time. Trey Mann is an interesting guard, but not really a fit for what the Thunder have. Micic, I'm unfamiliar with the game, but Bertans is a shooter I think any team can have, but it does give you that defensive liability. That's something that they can now give the Hornets a bunch of shooting, a bunch of fun, and get Gordon Hayward, a nice veteran player who can still give good minutes and some good offense. So I think a great pick there. Now, getting into some of the Knicks moves here, and really the highlight of this show, the Knicks getting Alec Burks and Bogdan Bogdanovic, and the Pistons getting Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan, I'm not going to say the name, 2 future second-round picks and cash consideration. Now, Alec Burks played on the Knicks already, went to Pistons, and the Knicks said, we got to have him again. A good backup kind of point guard player, whether it be shooting guard, point guard. He can play sort of both roles at a decent clip, enough for the Lakers to get by. But really, it's Bogdan Bogdanovic who stands out here. Cannot be overlooked. His shooting, his defense really was one of those premier 3-and-D guys on a Jazz team that was considered very high and highly touted, and definitely was a reason for that, both on offense and defense. Great ad for the Knicks. I think if you talk about things that the Knicks needed, is a little bit more of the finer things, some of the shooting, some of the offensive skill and talent. I think you add a little bit of that. I think this gives the opportunity for the Knicks not to just get so defensive oriented and get in these shooting droughts. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, just the perfect kind of veteran to add to a team that's cooking right now. He's not going to get in the way of what you've already got going with all these different players. And Alec Burks has, you got to think, if the Knicks were willing to trade to get Alec Burks back, they really wanted Alec Burks. So I just think that the Knicks knew in that trade what they were wanting and not really giving up too many pieces. Evan Fournier is interesting. Outside of that, all of that stuff is kind of just stuff that's not really useful for the Knicks. So I think that was a great trade there. Really for both teams, though. I think the Pistons got a lot of interesting things to work with, So that will be something that the Pistons get to see what they can do with. The Knicks. And another trade, this happened a little bit earlier into the trade deadline, something we could have covered weeks ago, but I think we just knew there was more coming from the Knicks. Knicks get OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, and Precious Achua. Yep. And the Raptors get RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a 2024 second-round pick from Detroit. Now, that's just one of those moves. OG Anunoby, that's a glue guy right there. You fit him in. He does anything a coach wants of him on the floor. Offense, defense, gives you a lot and just works hard worker. The kind of Nick that would become a Nick. It's just a perfect Nick. I really do think that was the greatest skill there. Now, the underrated portion of this is Mitchell Robinson, usually coming out with some injuries throughout the year, playing that center spot. Getting Precious Achua is interesting because he's very physical, dominant, has the physical tools to be great. Maybe the footwork's not great, but it does give them a great option there at that center position if they want to continue going with aggressive defense and so often. I think that Precious Achua is a good ad there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things that I've noticed, the Knicks had all these really good trades. They didn't give up a single first-round pick for any of these guys. So I think they did a really good job getting guys that they either know that they like or guys that know will work with their system, with Tom Thibodeau's system. So I think they did a really good job with their trades.
I think that's why they get the title as the best team to come out of the trade deadline, just because I think it was a lot of moves that didn't risk any future moves. You still have a lot of pieces to work with. You didn't really get rid of any of your assets. You got a lot of good pieces there that could still win this year. And when you look at that East, right now currently 4th, and I mean the Celtics look tough and the Bucks are going to be tough, but I don't think any team's going to want to match up against the Knicks even before these trades, now so doubly. I just think that the Knicks could offer something on offense now that they haven't in years past that kind of made the Knicks an okay matchup. I think a lot of those top teams would say, if we got the Knicks, We just have to play really well, and eventually their offense will let them down. But this year, it just feels like maybe the Knicks have got that covered. And it gets interesting. The West is scary, but they just have to focus on the East, and I think the Knicks have a possibility to at least play spoiler to one of those teams above them. All right, we got one more trade. It kind of fell into the bottom here, but I want to go ahead and hear your thoughts anyway because I have some thoughts on this. Go ahead and give us that last Mavericks trade before we get into UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Topuria.
All right, so for this last Mavs trade, the Mavs got Daniel Gafford, and they gave up Rashawn Holmes and a 2024 first-round pick for the Thunder. Once again, this is a trade that I like. I think that Daniel Gafford is a good player. He's going to be somebody that I think will play well with Luka. Rashawn Holmes has been good. Not great, but I am a fan of this trade.
Yeah, I got to say I'm more of a fan of this trade than you are because I love Daniel Gafford. Now, part of that's because I'm a recovering betting addict, and Daniel Gafford could be a double-double on any night. He's got a lot of rebounds. I think that's something the Mavs are going to benefit from, having a bigger center that can set better screens. And Derek Lively, I think, is kind of what they're going for. But Derek Lively has been so good. It's up to the Mavs to not mess up those center minutes because I think you can get a good influx of different aspects of each game that you can kind of sub in and out for each other. I think that Gafford's great for the overall offense for the Mavs, and I think plays a little bit better defensively. But then Derek Lively adds like a physical young element. He's just a hustler. You don't want him off the floor. So the Mavs have to kind of weigh that a little bit, one against the other. But other than that, I think that the Mavs made some very good trades. I think they get that silver medal for second best team in the trade deadline of this year. Now moving on,